You're listening to the Shit You Can't Make Up podcast, a conversation with friends, hosted by Marisol Sanchez.
Hey, I'm back from India, and I've actually been back for a few days. I was just getting adjusted to the world as I remember it. I didn't jump on to do a podcast because I was still processing the whole trip. So I didn't want to. If I jumped on earlier, I think the most of the podcast would have been about my dysentery. I came back with a mild case of dysentery, so fun times. Now, anyway, I didn't want to jump on too early because I just wanted to kind of process, sit with my trip. And so anywho, I have not listened to my previous podcast, India Part 1, because A, I get terribly embarrassed when I listen to myself, and B, I'm pretty sure I was overthinking everything and would only be extra mortified by the podcast. But I think I left with two hopes for my trip. One is some level of comfort with the idea of spirituality, and oh God, I think the second one was some affirmation that I'm, I don't know. I don't want to say it. I'm embarrassed. Anyway, that I like myself. I feel like an SNL character. Anyway, both of those, totally yes. The second one, I feel silly that was even coming up for me. But the first one was kind of, a big lofty goal to put on the trip. And I think I realized that early on the first few days that I put way too much emphasis on wanting to, I don't know, just wanting this I had this desire of just really, having a spiritual moment, I guess. So anyway, I think I'll just tell you about my trip a little bit, break it down, the good, the bad, the real. Everyone who saw my stuff on Facebook was like, you look like you're having a great time. And I did. I had a fantastic time. It was an unforgettable adventure. It was an adventure. It was not a vacation. There was many a time that I was like, what the fuck? Why are you here, and why aren't you at Turks and Caicos with a glass of champagne in your hand? But so I make the note about Facebook because on Facebook I also didn't, post. I guess I posted just all the happy, good stuff, which I think is, the criticism of Facebook, that it just puts everyone's life, makes it look like everything is happy, joy, joy. And I didn't post the, horrible head cold that I got, the period from hell, then the dysentery at the end, and the emotional breakdown, after a few days of being at the ashram. It was a full range of emotions were experienced and felt, and overall it was a wonderful trip. I'm grateful to have gone. I'm grateful to everyone who helped me make it possible to go. It took a lot of people, supporting me back at home to let me go, to my kids for being awesome. But yeah, so we get there. So it's for me it was a 2 flights. One short flight to New York, from Wilmington, North Carolina, and then a few hours there, then 15-hour flight to New Delhi. When I got to New Delhi, I didn't see the person. I didn't see my name. Someone was supposed to pick me up, and I was scared. I'm not gonna lie. I was terrified. I'm a single, woman in India for the first time. I'm getting in at like 10 o'clock at night local time. So I was a little bit scared, but made a few calls. Jumped online. I knew that. I knew there were about 150 people going to this yatra, and I knew about 5 of them from my local shala. So contacted them. One of them was kind enough to jump in a cab to come get me, unbeknownst to me, because I just jumped in a cab and said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna go to the hotel." And so we missed each other, but I went to the hotel. And it was a nice hotel. My first experience the taxi, drives up to the hotel, and there's armored security at the hotel. So before you could go in the gate, they open the trunk and the hood before we could go in. And then as a guest, I had to, go through, security thing, and then on top of that, as a woman, I guess, I just realized that they do that to the women. Maybe they pat down the men right there in the open and I didn't notice, but they take us aside to this enclosed area, and a woman pats us down. So that was a bit like, whoa. But it was a beautiful hotel. So I was like, okay, this is, I can do this. I was worried. I think stupidly, ignorantly worried about smells and scents. Nothing, the hotel in New Delhi is metropolitan as can be. No, that was ignorance on my part. Hotel's great. Get in, wake up the person that I'm sharing the room with. Didn't know her. First time we met, and that ended up being really cool because I think I met a few people on this trip that will be friends, lifelong friends, and I think she will be one of them because we bonded on this on this adventure of ours. She was Italian, lived in Paris, but currently lives in the Congo. So how fucking cool is that? I was like, yes! Awesome. Okay. First night, get up. We're practicing at the hotel. So everything so far is hunky-dory. I'm not having any kind of culture shock. Feeling fine, not feeling jet lagged or anything. My Wi-Fi is working. Everything, life is but a dream at this point. Everything is great. We meet up with, now this yatra, I have to pause a second and describe the yatra. The yatra I think was in 3 or 4 parts. I only came in for one part of it, specifically going to Uttarkashi to practice Ashtanga with Sharat Joyce, who's the leading teacher of Ashtanga Yoga. But before that, people had already been on this yatra. I couldn't tell you what they did, where they went. They went places, but we meet up at this point, and then they also went on after us. And I see the pictures now on Facebook, and they seem to have done some really cool stuff. But at this point in the yatra, 150 people are converging from, I believe, 32 or 36 different countries. So it's getting to know people, sitting down to various meals, and it's all fun and interesting at this point. Very touristy. So our first outing, if I want to make sure I remember this correctly. Anyway, it was all great. There were some pictures I posted. There was this huge um, Shiva that I posted on Facebook that was the the things I got to see, the things I got to experience, completely awesome. Just I was so happy. I was happy to be there with friends from North Carolina and meet new people. We went to a couple different temples, and this is where I kind of felt like I was pushing I really want to be spiritual, where I was like, I just wasn't feeling it authentically, where I kind of had to have that inner conversation with myself, like, Marisol, what the fuck? Just chill. Just chill, just be, just experience, stop, overthinking everything. I did have a few moments at different temples where it wasn't necessarily that I felt a sense of spirituality or anything, but I did get that sense, the taste of why India is such a mecca for people on a spiritual journey, because it is everywhere. You see it. It is something. It is part of their culture, and you see it in a thousand different varieties. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if it's the my days kind of blend in, but on this part of the trip, I think maybe it was the second day, we do go to this temple. We go on a cable car up to this temple, and there I felt the opposite. There was a 180. I did not feel any sense of spirituality. In fact, it was probably it reminded me of the New Testament. Okay, let me describe it first, and then I'll go back. There's this temple, and within this space, there are several. I couldn't even tell you. Many people, many different little altars, many different people offering blessings. And when I say offering blessings, you had to pay for the blessings, and they were kind of aggressive, in my opinion, about it. And I didn't like this experience at all. It was the opposite of maybe the day before when we had gone to other temples where there was just a serenity, a quietness, and a respect. And me trying to understand the history of these different temples versus this was just like pressure and fast and money exchanging hands for blessings. And it did remind me, there was at one point, reminded me of the story of Jesus. I believe he was a child. And he went to temple and he got really mad because everyone had tables lined up, and he gave a great speech about church and God, and that's what it felt like to me. It felt just this. There's nothing spiritual for me in that area. It felt like a place where people got taken for money. But yet it was still it was an experience. All right, so then those are like the first few days. Then we move on to the trip to Uttarkashi, which we get on these buses, and I don't know. I took a little clip of a video of it to share with my kids because it felt like a death trap. I felt like imminent death was just around the corner. So we're going up the mountain. It's a 6-hour drive, and the bus is like, just tossing us about, and I couldn't even look out the window to see as we're going around the curve, because Indians drive. Yeah, I feel like I'm a fairly well-traveled person. I've been to many different countries in my life, and I would, have to say Indian driving is probably the scariest for me. Um, they seem to do it intuitively versus any, design. So there's a lot of, you go around the corner and everyone's driving in the middle of the road, and it's a very, very narrow road that, one way is mountain, the other way is, death. So, you go around and you hear a honking beep, and there's someone on a moped, and, or you have to stop. And so we're going up this mountain, maybe 10, 15 miles an hour, to Uttarkashi. So that in itself was an experience. And I ended up getting to know my roommate, the one I mentioned earlier, on this trip, and she got to know me, and it was fun. I think I got a little nauseous at one point, but all was good. All was good. Then we get to Uttarkashi. And we get to the ashram, and it was nighttime, and I think, I could speak for myself. I was exhausted, and I just, I wanted to get in my room, and I wanted to go to bed. I don't even know what day that was. I don't know if it was a Saturday or Sunday. But anyway, we get there. Excuse me, having a sip. And I'm assigned a room with someone that I know from North Carolina. And there was a little bit of room confusion, but we get into the room. The room's very clean, but it's an ashram. It's not a hotel. The bed was hard. Like, it was hard. The mattress was, it ended up actually being fantastic for my bed. The whole experience was fantastic. But, it was living in an ashram. Bucket baths and washing my own clothes by hand, and 2 meals a day, and we were meant to be quiet during the meals, and not using toiletry, or I don't know how do you say this? Don't flush things down the toilet. They don't use toilet paper. They use their left hand. I learned this to clean themselves after in the bathroom. I ended up using toilet paper. But it was hold on one second. My guest host is that would be Hope coming in from the outside. It was, hard living. Yeah, it was. Fuck it. Obviously, no Wi-Fi. Very spotty, which basically disconnected me for the week. I got to go into town here and there and log in to check in on my kids and send them messages. But I was disconnected as much as I've ever been since having, all this technology available to us. The food was good. It was, I did get a little bit tired of it by the end of the week. I was like, oh, no coffee. which was like, whoa, but they had lovely chai tea. At this point, anyway, this week at the ashram was fantastic. It was probably my favorite part of the whole trip. But it wasn't like incredibly difficult. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, holy shit, that was fucking intense and awesome. And, I'm kind of impressed with myself that I had the ability to do it and to hang and be. We get up very early. We got up at 5 in the morning, and we'd practice with Sherrod at 6. Or there were 2 groups. Some practiced at 6, some practiced at 8. I practiced at 6. Then we'd have chai. Then we'd have a little bit of free time, and then we'd have something in the afternoon. I'm sorry. Back up. After chai and after the second group is done with their practice, we would have breakfast. Then we would have free time. Then we would have some sort of activity. A lot of them with the monks or the swamis of the ashram. Anything from chanting to, we had this one night where we got to see a movie based on some, famous Swami who used to be an atheist and then was a true story based on an Indian who grew up to become a journalist and an atheist and freedom fighter against, the English rule in India, and then went to write a story about spirituality, and found himself studying under 2 different teachers, gurus, and then becoming a huge inspiration and following, this particular life. So it was all. I mean, we had speakers, different, swamis coming to speak. To me, probably the most heartfelt event of the week was when the town of Uttarkashi invited us to. I mean, it's a very, to say, poverty-stricken community. I don't mean to be offensive. I just don't know any other words to describe it. But and it was just, when you go into the little town, it was, for me, it was just humbling. I've never experienced poverty like that, or seen, people living their life that way. And it, for me, definitely put a lot of things in perspective as far as my relationship with money and fear. Anyway, but these people were lovely, just absolutely lovely, and treated us to this dinner. And I didn't know this before I'd signed up for the trip, but there had been some bad floods, and I knew that part, but this town specifically got hit very, very hard, and so the little tourism that they, depended on, dried up for them, especially after the second flood. They said that after the first one, they got a lot of national attention, or not national, worldwide attention, and received a lot of help, but after the second one, not so much. And so our group, our yatra, was the first to come since they had been devastated like that. And they threw us they did like this little community theater production for us, and that was fucking cool. And I really enjoyed that. I actually got up on stage in the end. They invited us up to dance, and I danced with this one girl, and we laughed, and it was genuine awesomeness all around. We brought some of us brought some stuff for the children, though I ended up getting in trouble. I brought 2 things of candy and handing it out, and that was awesome until I got in trouble for doing it. But so I did get in trouble, but it was a great was a great experience. Practicing all week long with Sharat was cool. I was nervous about it. I didn't think I would be prepared for it, I was wrong. My teacher fully prepared us. I, you know, I showed up every day. I did my practice, and I did it being sick. Because that week that I was in the ashram, I got sick twice. The first one was, excuse me for my male listeners, but I got my period, and it wasn't just like any period. It was like the worst period of the year. I don't know if it was the travel, some other, medical issues going on with me. I don't know, but it was my poor little room in the ashram looked like a murder scene for one night, and had to wake up. I unfortunately woke up my roommate as I was, hand washing the sheets, praying, and then trying to figure out, wait, hold on, if I can't flush the toilet, what's the plan here? And really just feeling miserable, physically. So, but you know what? I got up and I practiced, and I did my practice. Then shortly thereafter, I think, combined with my period, I got this ridiculous head cold. So when I didn't practice and I wasn't doing whatever the activities were at the ashram, I was in bed. I was in bed. So, and which is probably a good thing because it lessened the opportunities for me to, try to force spirituality or something. Couple days into, sorry, I have a fever blister and I just bumped against it. Couple days after that, into this week at the ashram, I did have like a little bit of an emotional breakdown, and I don't know if it was emotional. I think it was emotional for a lot of different reasons. I felt like I was looking for something and I wasn't finding it. I missed my kids. I don't know. I was just, got. But it was a funny way. The way it happened, my little emotional breakdown was I was writing in my journal. I was outside of my room and had my headphones on. I think it was very clear that it was kind of like, no, I just didn't want to talk. I just kind of wanted to be. And this gentleman came up to me, another person I think I'll be, lifelong friends with, and sat down. And I don't really want to share what he and I discussed because it is private and personal, but it was probably the most intense experience of the whole trip for me because I had this conversation and I started just, crying. And, I just felt this release is the way I could describe it, just this release of like, and here's this gentleman who he doesn't know me, we didn't know, hadn't met prior to this, and even though he was at the ashram and I was at the ashram, but again, it's 150 people, and but he felt compelled to tell me certain things, and the things that he felt compelled to tell me, it was sort of like he was looking in my soul, and it was intense. When we finished that conversation, I went back to my room and I was just sobbing. And again, I mean, this all sounds really sad and horrible, but it wasn't. It was just, it was intense. It was the only way I can describe it. And to me, that moment was very special. Okay. And then, so that was basically, the week at the ashram. I mean, I'm cutting out a lot of, things that happened. We went to the Ganges River in India is a big part of this trip because it kind of followed us to the different places we had been. You know, the Ganges is a very long river. And the beginning of the trip, we went to a I don't know what to call it. I don't know what the right word is. I mean, it's escaping me, but it's something that occurs, I believe, every week at sunset, and it's a big proceeding. I don't know. But people go into the river and they dunk themselves 7 times, washing away their sins for 7 past generations and 7 future generations. And I did it, and this is before we went to the ashram. I did it this one time, and it was awesome. You know, I don't, if it's true, I am sure that there is 7 generations of sins worthy of being washed away. And so I had no problems with that. I had no, you know, I was comfortable with it. It was a great experience, and it was cool. We went again to the Ganges River when we're up in the mountains in Uttarkashi, and it looked completely different there. It was beautiful and serene, and we actually had a conference with Sharat there, and that was awesome. That was really beautiful. Unfortunately, a friend of mine from North Carolina hurt herself, and things took a very dramatic turn. She broke her ankle or fractured it on both ends, and I ended up going to the hospital with her in Uttarkashi, which was an experience in itself. I mean, it was gross. It was gross. I mean, I asked to go to the bathroom, and the doctor was like, no, do not go to the bathroom. Too disgusting. Like, it was an intense experience. They didn't have wheelchair. They didn't have crutches. It was, yeah, gnarly. So there was that happened on the trip, and felt really awful for my friend specifically, because this is how her trip, you know, the turn her trip took. Then it got dramatic, also trying to figure out how she was going to get off the mountain to get the medical attention that she needed, and she was there for a few days with. Anyway, she was airlifted, helicopter lifted out of Uttarkashi, out of the mountains. She did not have to endure the 6-hour, I think it was 5 on the way down. I think we could go a little faster on the way down. Still bumpy though. Drive down to Rishikesh is where the end of my trip happens. And this is actually where I think I got sick. And this was interesting. This is a really interesting part of the trip, because, you know, you become very used to the ashram. At least I did, very quickly. You know, I was shocked how easy it was to not have coffee for X number of days and get up and practice and, you know, be quiet and have hours of no electricity available to you, not be connected, and all those things. So we leave the ashram, you know, feeling a little bit, at this point I was feeling a little bit sad, because realistically, would I ever be back? I don't know. It was a beautiful experience. I was, you know, really appreciative of the time I'd spent there, knowing that a lot of people that I had met were going on, you know, thinking this would be a great I wish, you know, I always had the sense during the trip that I wish my kids were with me, because I really wanted them to be experiencing the things that I was experiencing. So I was a little melancholy on the way down, but when we get to Rishikesh, when we get to the hotel, oh my gosh, it was just joy, 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 just to be back in. I mean, when we got to the hotel and we got to the buffet, I can't. I'm just gonna speak for myself. I was like, what? What ashram? What? Give me. I was like shoveling food in my mouth and had coffee, all in that within that first meal. Anyway, right after that meal, um, I was I don't know if I think there was this moment I had water that I, up until now, had been really careful about drinking just bottled water. But I do remember having this drink. And anyway, that's when my tummy troubles started. But that was still an awesome part of the trip. It was just, you know, just my first of everything after the ashram, my first cup of coffee, my first meal, and everything. It's still kind of happening even back now that I'm back in the States. You know, my first pedicure after, everything is that first time after this trip is kind of awesome. And it brings a lot of gratitude and appreciation for whatever I'm enjoying, whatever first world treats I'm having. But that's where I got my tummy troubles, and we went back out in Ricketesh, and we did some shopping, and I got to hang with some more different people from the yatra, and it was fun. And we, again, the Ganges River, we went and did another blessing there, and I actually had a massage at the hotel. But again, it wasn't, it was still a massage. You can't really complain about a massage, but it wasn't what I'm used to, and or probably what I needed at the time. I ended up doing this oil bath and then going to a steam room, and I'm already starting to feel sick at this point. And I think that detoxification kind of made it worse. So that night, it's my last night with the yatra. The next morning we're planning is a 5-hour train ride to New Delhi, or it's a 1-hour bus ride, then a 5-hour train ride to New Delhi. And this train ride is not like the trains, the train from Paris to England. This is very rustic, very it's a hard travel day. It's a hard travel day. You have your luggage, and you're getting jostled about a lot. But the night before, I started to get sick, and wake up my poor roommate with my tummy troubles, running back and forth to the bathroom. And by the time I got on the train, I'm burning up, and someone was kind enough to give me some Cipro, and that didn't sit well with me. So the 5 hours on the train were kind of vicious for me. Were kind of the just, I was feeling awful. I just wanted to make it without throwing up, without, I was worried that on this train, the train on the way, the first time I took the train on the way there, the 5-hour train, the bathroom situation was you basically pee in between the rails, like there wasn't a toilet. So I thought that's what it was going to be like, and I was freaking out, but luckily there was a toilet. And by that point, our standards are really, really low. So it's just like I was happy that there was, an ability to close the door if I needed to go. And I went one time and survived it. So then we get into New Delhi, and that's the end of the yatra. We're done. We're on our own from there. My flight home is not till that evening, almost I think 11:30 at night. And I think we're getting in around noon. By the kindness of another person I met on this trip, an Australian who is my little guardian angel, we take a taxi to the same hotel that we had started at, and she was kind enough, she was going to be there for a few days, she was kind enough to let me crash. And I took a shower, and I just laid in her bed, and it was one of those feverish days, where I'm just sleeping, but I'm feverish, I'm kind of aware of the time. I had ordered like toast and I think some tea, but I just couldn't keep anything. Just everything was making me nauseous. And I was really like, proud of myself because I thought I'd gotten through the worst. The 5 hour train ride, was really nervous about the 15-hour plane ride. But I did feel better. I mean, as each hour passed, I felt a little bit better. So by the time I got to the airport and got on the plane, I was feeling 70% better. And anyway, got through the 15-hour, watched 3 movies, slept a little, read, and got to New York. And like that, in the blink of an eye, my little adventure is over. And, I think that's where we'll leave it with. I don't really know what more to say about it. I'm glad I went. It was an experience. What I've taken away from it, the 2 things I've taken away from it, is one is that I'm much stronger than I ever give myself credit for, because this is not a trip for the meek and mild. None of it. So to any of us that had been on the trip, any of us that showed up, pat on the back, because we are tough fucking people. And 2, the second thing I took away from it was, I think I mentioned in the last podcast that I was insecure about my likability. I think that one we could put to rest, because, I met some awesome people, wonderful people that I connected with. And there's a difference between connecting with people and just on the surface, getting along with people. And I met some wonderful, lovely human beings that I had great conversations with. And again, I guess the word is that I connected with. And when I get to see people, when I get to see how people react to me, I guess, all those insecurities I have about being liked or not liked kind of wash away, because I'm awesome. No, I'm not. No, I'm very fortunate to have met the people I've met and have had this experience. It was an awesome experience. It was, it had it all. It had it all, but, if this was a story that I could write, it had it all but the love story. There's no love story aspect of this, except to say that there, men who practice Ashtanga are just, by general, gorgeous. Like, wow. There's something gorgeous about a man that has this practice. Just the flexibility, the dedication, and the ability to be open to all things like that is kind of cool. But there's no love story. There's no love connections. But aside from that, it had everything. It had, the highs and lows of a great little story, a great little adventure. So there you go. Thanks for listening. I'm hoping that next week I have a guest with me. So that's my plan. So maybe she'll have some follow-up questions that I didn't think to discuss. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you on the flip side.